All right, and we're back with part two of The Devil Comes to Town, and we have Aaron and Andrew with us today, and with the new overlay, so all good, exciting new things happening, and I guess we'll hand it over to Aaron to just take us straight away.
All right. Well, first thing I'll do is I'll tell Andrew because he wasn't here for the last episode, and maybe the other viewers weren't. But
Yeah.
we were speaking about there's a book by Mark Twain called The Mysterious Stranger, in which Satan comes to a small village in Austria, and he essentially corrupts some children by convincing them that essentially there's a higher reality that they're unaware of, and anything they do in this human life is it's confused, it's flawed, it has all these bad outcomes. And he pretty much convinces them that life's not living unless you're one, dead, or two, insane and in a delirium. And he
This sounds
convinces
familiar.
them this. um, and the book it's one of the books that shows the emergence of nihilism in our culture. But we'll just begin by we'll look at the final passages of the book where Satan appears, and he really after wearing these kids down with little bits of nihilism here and there, he comes in with the final blow. So here we have essentially the underpinnings of nihilism, which we kind of need to get beyond. So the last appearance of the mysterious stranger, that's Satan. This is from the narrator of the book, Theodore, who's one of the children.
Okay.
He had come to say goodbye. He told me he had investigations and undertakings in other corners of the universe. See, he's an angel. He can travel big distances. He's
All
aware
right.
of Yeah, he's kind of like he's got almost like a Rick and Morty thing going on, except it's Satan and this medieval
Uh,
um
I thought he might have just had really good eyesight or something.
yeah.
He's
But
got
he always does, it's meaningless. There's infinite possibility, he does the same thing Rick does to Morty, except a little bit more maliciously.
Yeah.
Although, it's actually quite a funny parallel because Satan does appear and he takes these kids on adventures to other parts of the world so they can see the world for what it truly is. So he takes them and he'll use all sorts of powers. He'll make them invisible. He'll do stuff like that so that they can witness things they couldn't otherwise witness. But instead of having fun adventures, Satan's only doing it to show them the horror of the world. Like he'll take them to a
Yeah.
torture chamber. He takes them to factories where people are slaving to death. He takes them to see diseased people. He does all sorts to them. Um, so he says he has undertakings in other corners of the universe. He said they would keep him busy for a longer period than I could wait for his return. In this life, Satan, but in another, we shall meet again surely. Then, all tranquilly and soberly, he made the strange answer. There is no other. So he's revealed there's now no eternal life.
Oh
One of the
shit.
final. He's
like
been teasing the whole book too, because he
Mm.
speaks of how glorious heaven is, and they say we'll be there someday, and he goes, "Yep."
How did they convey that in the book? Because that was amazing.
Yeah. Um,
it's like a salesperson not selling you the car after you've paid all the repayments.
yeah, I'll think you want it. But he says, "Have you never suspected this, Theodore?" And then a gust of thankfulness rose in my chest. But we have seen that future life, seen it in its actuality. It was a vision. It had no existence. I could hardly breathe for the great hope that was struggling in me. Life itself is only a vision, a dream. It was electrical. And then the reason he's so happy to find out that this life business is just a dream is because Satan's been doing all sorts of things in their town and sending people they love either to death in the form of killing them now gets them into heaven if they die a particular way, or letting the children be like, oh, help, there's a problem. And then Satan kills someone and he says that resolves the problem. They did go to hell though. And then the children have that on their conscience.
Oh, okay. Is
Yeah.
that better?
Yeah. He's been having fun with them. He's torturing them, and it's. So
Wait.
now he's revealed there's no heaven, there is no afterlife, there is no hell. And then Theodore comes to the conclusion that nothing exists. All is a dream. God, man, the world, the sun, the moon, the wilderness of stars, a dream. All a dream. They have no existence. And then Satan speaks. Satan can read his mind. Satan says, but I, your poor servant, Satan pretends he's helping him the whole time, have
Okay.
revealed you to yourself and set you free. Dream other dreams, and better. Strange that you should not have suspected years ago, centuries, ages, eons ago, for you have existed companionless through all eternities. Strange indeed that you should not have suspected that your universe and its contents were only dreams, visions, fiction. Now, he goes on, but this is a nihilistic belief that we are matter. Matter has existed since the beginning of time. We just happen to be a particular configuration of matter, a temporary configuration, and that one day this life that we've so briefly had will just be a blip on the cosmic time scale. And in this way of thinking, life does seem a little meaningless. And it can be hard for the nihilists to wrestle their way out of it, especially if they really dig into it.
Yeah.
So,
Did he need to throw in companionless? Was that necessary, or was that just a dig? Because that just seemed a little rude.
It's like a sprinkle of existentialism in there, like
Yeah.
you're all alone. Good luck.
well, this is it's a trope in the modern world, and it comes from nihilism, that the individual is the primary unit. And you'll see this often in the Reddit types where someone will be like, my mother-in-law insists on doing my washing, and someone will be like, you don't have any obligation to have her in your life. Tell your wife she needs to deal with it. And if she can't deal with it, just get divorced, because you don't have to stick around in a marriage like that. And, it's like old mates, like, you're just going to, like, cut everyone away and just be an individual because of a small hassle.
Yeah.
0 to 100.
The individual's primary. Like, someone will be like, I don't know, my girlfriend brushes her teeth weird, and they're like, break up.
Yeah.
Just break up.
Reddit's funny like that because a lot of the people responding are probably like under 18 anyway and probably single, and they're like, ooh, if in 10 years I was in maybe that position, I'd just break up with her. And it's like, yeah, but what if you've built this life over like 8 years with this person? They're intertwined in your life and family. I don't think it's as easy over a fucking toothbrush.
Yeah, it's so comical, and it's like, it is a very immature belief, but a lot of the times they'll pick up nihilism as a philosophy when they're young, because it's quite an easy one to pick up. It's almost like you watch the wrong episode of something, like a TV show, and you'll pick up a bit of nihilism, and you'll be able to stitch the ideas together for yourself, because they're not that complicated, really. And then
It's like nihilism's really low level. Like it seems like a lot of people that adopt it seem like they go for like a objective reality kind of view of everything, and then they miss a whole big chunk of reality. And I find it's not very deep. I feel sorry for people that adopt it as their primary.
You can pretty much only be a nihilist if you're in a protected zone where you don't have to engage with the majority of life because it's kind of handled for you. So Satan reveals to Theodore that he's alone. And then he further goes on. Now he attacks God, which is interesting, but the book's within a religious landscape, so Strange indeed that you should not have suspected that your universe and its contents were only dreams. Strange because they are so frankly and hysterically insane, like all dreams. A god who could make good children as easily as bad, yet preferred to make bad ones, who could have made every one of them happy, yet never made a single happy one, who made them prize their bitter life, yet cut it stingingly short, who gave his angels eternal happiness unearned, yet required his other children to earn it, who gave his angels painless lives, yet cursed his other children with biting miseries and maladies of mind and body, who mouths justice and invented hell, mouths mercy and invented hell, mouths golden rules and forgiveness multiplied by 70 times 7 and invented hell, who mouths morals to other people and has none himself, who frowns upon crimes yet commits them all, who created man without invitation, then tries to shuffle the responsibility for man's acts upon man, instead of honorably placing it where it belongs, upon himself. And finally, with altogether divine obtuseness, invites this poor abused slave to worship him. You perceive now that all these things are impossible except in a dream. And then he goes on, but he reveals to Nicholas that, sorry, I keep saying Nicholas because Nicholas is another character in the book.
Theodore.
He reveals to Theodore that he is the one who is the creator of the dream, him alone, nothing is real. There is no reality above his isolated existence. And in a certain sense, there is no reality.
See, doesn't that mean if there's no afterlife and there's no reality, doesn't it mean there's no hell?
Yeah, that's what he's
Well,
saying.
that's the idea, yeah.
There's really no Earth. It's just what Theodore is imagining in this particular moment. And he says at the beginning of the chapter, in a section I didn't read out, that as soon as Theodore stops imagining it, it will disappear and he will cease to exist. But should Theodore imagine it again, kind of like reality's back on, but he sort of puts a real kind of like reality is very unstable in its very, very limited form, which is only created by you. Nothing matters. There is no higher power. And even if there was, what the hell would the higher power be? He's all corrupt and none of this makes any sense. And then Satan sort of says, well, I'm off now. See you later.
But he didn't create Satan?
Well,
He did.
see,
He did.
because you gotta suspend like a very what would the thing be? An understanding of reality. The easiest way to understand this, Mark Twain wrote this book, and the reality was never real. Mark Twain's the author. A character within the story, Theodore, is just a thought that exists in Mark Twain's mind, and Satan himself has emerged to reveal this to Theodore.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the thoughts that Satan puts forward don't stay in the book. They spread out into other parts of culture. And the Satan character that Mark Twain puts forward, he's a lot more advanced than Theodore. The Satan character managed to escape these pages, and he even appeared elsewhere in other works, and he's present in people's thoughts constantly as they walk around. And God,
He's real.
he's that's the thing. He's an archetype. This this pattern of being is present in not only other stories, but it's also present in day-to-day life.
You've all got a little bit of Satan and nihilism in all of us, though. Depends on how sad and up.
Yeah, it comes out.
And
But now we have to. I remember the whole reason we started talking about this, Andrew, was because nihilism and finance don't go well together. And one thing I've realized, because I've had a few conversations recently with people, is that it's very, very hard for someone with a nihilistic, like philosophical foundation to accomplish anything.
Oh, this isn't an intervention, is it?
Well,
Nah.
it's you a little bit, but you've got glimmers of light in you. There's other people who have,
You're like, yes, but you've got hope.
yeah, well, you do.
We can turn you around.
It's not us, it's you. Look, your house is better than it was when you lived with me.
That was the same
Yeah.
house.
You've escaped the room. Now you're in the house.
Yeah,
That's cool.
not the metaphorical room, of course. The physical house I live in.
Yeah.
Not the house that Satan inhabits inside of you.
Yeah. Who I created to tell me that.
See, the devil trope is really common in modern culture, and a lot of the time is seen as a good guy, which is really weird.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. So yeah, there's the Rolling Stones song "Sympathy for the Devil," and ever since that song, or perhaps even before that song a little bit, but Satan's been viewed as this tragic figure who's like worthy of our sympathy because he's just like this guy who's aware of the shortcomings of God and that reality's flawed. And, you know, really, they're like Satan is more like us than we are like God. So everybody kind of becomes attached to the Satan figure. And then you can go all the way up to the point of like Lucifer, where Satan is kind of like the hero of that story. And in his redemption, I mean, he has a chance to become God. He turns it down, but that was very good of the people who made the show not to have Satan replace God, because the story would become quite weird at that point. Like,
Yeah.
Mm.
It's like, I find it hard to separate out the whole devil thing from financial nihilism entirely, but I get your point, because if you have no idea of the future and you have, how would I say it, nothing to really look forward to, then there's probably no reason to save any money.
Mm.
yeah, oh yeah. Okay, let's go forward. We'll go into another story now because this one's a fun one. There's an episode of Futurama which begins to address the problems that the devil puts forward in the book. It comes close, but it falls short just at the end. So the professor buys a new generation of robot to help out at Planet Express. Bender becomes jealous of the new robot, Robot 1X, because it has superior technology, and he begins to try to compete. Robot 1X is clearly superior, and Bender decides that he needs to go in the trash. He's sitting there in the trash can, and he's acting all sorry for himself. If you know the episode, it's good. The professor tells him that he needs to go in and get an upgrade. So Bender goes to the upgrade facility, and he's watching another robot leave, and the robot goes in. It's that stabbing one, you know,
Yeah.
that one. He's like, "Ah, hey, those Robot 1X. I want to stab him." And then he goes and he gets the upgrade, and then he walks away and he goes, "I love the Robot 1X. They're my friends." And he like walks away. And Bender's like, "Oh, change his whole personality." So he steps forward onto the platform. As the guy goes to throw the switch to do the upgrade, Bender panics and he jumps out the window down onto the ground below. He's now on the shore of a beach. There's the factory where he's getting the upgrade. There's the shore, and then there's the ocean. And he grabs a sign and he folds it into a boat and he sets sail. Heads out into the ocean. There's a storm. He goes overboard on his boat, and then he washes ashore on a desert island. And the desert island's populated by robots that have become obsolete and refuse to get upgrades. He becomes attached, and they become like his new companions. And then they decide, or well, Bender decides he'll get a downgrade rather than an upgrade, and he has his metal body converted into wood. He then tells the obsolete robots they're going to go wage a war on technology, and they get in a wooden submarine, and they travel down through the depths back to the mainland, and they begin an attack on Planet Express in an attempt to kill Robot 1X. So as they're doing their attack, it doesn't go very well because they're a bunch of obsolete robots, and they're using a flaming catapult that's attached to the submarine to try attack this like robot.
Made of wood.
Yeah, made of wood. And then
Yeah.
they end up knocking out one of the legs of the Planet Express ship. It falls and it crushes all the members of the Planet Express crew. And while they're pinned under the ship, they're calling out to Bender to save them. But a fire's broken out, and because he's made of wood, he can't get close. And he's got wood arms now, so he can't do the extender arm thing, and there's flames, so he's beginning to set fire. And he realizes he's got termites as he's trying to rescue them, and it's all not going well. And then the Robot 1X is just sitting there idle, it's just floating in the air. And then he realizes he can tell the robot to rescue his friends, but he'll still get the credit. So he tells Robot 1X to rescue the crew, and they're all like, "Oh, thank you, Bender, you did it."
Mm.
Ignore this new robot, pretty much. And then there's some electricity effect thing, and it turns out Bender was still standing on the platform where he was standing to get the upgrade, and that the whole episode was a dream. And it turns out the dream where he got a downgrade, that was the upgrade in itself. And standing there after the upgrade, he's like, "Oh, that wasn't real." And the guy's like, "Everyone experiences the upgrade differently." And he says something like, "Well, if something that seems so real could be fake, how do I know anything's real? Maybe this whole world could be someone else's imagination." He says something like that. And the upgrade guy says, "No, it couldn't." And then Bender just leaves. But as he's walking out, he says something along the lines of like, "Well, I guess reality is only what you make of it." And he's standing in a bad part of town, and there's all crime and stuff like that. All mess. And then he imagines it to be like a beautiful pasture with rainbows and unicorns and all that. And yeah, he says the line, "Reality is what you make of it," and then he walks off whistling. It's partly an answer to the problem Mark Twain puts forward, but it's not a very good one. Because reality isn't what you make of it.
Not fully, anyway.
No, it's part that. But he's become aware of the potential of a higher reality, yet he's populated it with his own kind of like childish imaginings of, his thoughts and desires, when really there is a higher reality. It does contain the thing that you want, but it also contains things that you might not want, and it's not yours to command. And I would put forward that this higher reality is easiest to understand in the terms of it's the unknown. And this is the problem that Satan has in Mark Twain's book. Satan is aware of what's going on. He can read people's minds. He can look into the future, and they say he can see 1 billion possible outcomes. At one point, he reveals he can see 1 billion outcomes, and I think he says 1,000 years ahead or something like that. That's not all of potential. Like, there's actually a lot more than 1 billion things that can happen. And the world will go on a lot longer than 1,000 years.
Yeah, 1,000 years isn't that long in the grand scale of it.
Plus,
yeah,
it's like, how can you differentiate whether he's just saying it to prove a false point, or like, how can you tell he's telling the truth?
Yeah. Because he's so aware of how meaningless our lives are, he stops telling the truth. And in lots of scenes, Satan just tells people what they want to hear, just to make their short and meaningless lives a little bit more enjoyable. But ultimately, that's not a very nice thing to be doing to the people, because everyone acting under flawed information that he's offered them end up getting themselves in a lot of trouble anyway.
Mm.
But this is the mistake of the somewhat like the rationalist, like especially the modern scientific mind that can see in some respects these limits of the universe that were previously invisible. Like prior to microscopes, there was no microbes. There was just it just sort of there was a barrier of unknown, and then that was that. But now we know that there's microbes, and we know that beneath that there's all particles, and we even know what the particles are made of. And we've kind of like we've seen to the bottom of small, and then when it comes to seeing to the top of big, we can see the edges of the universe. And there's theories about what exactly is those edges and what's beyond those edges. But our vision stretches so far now that it's very easy to think of the Earth as being meaningless, considering we know what it's made of and we know it's a tiny fraction of what there is. And sometimes being aware of a higher reality in like a rationalist and often like a scientific sense, it doesn't do much for the soul to make you want to continue living and to continue to do better. It almost stagnates you a little bit.
Well,
So yeah,
I was just gonna say, when you say that we've seen to the limits of like the micro and the macro, we haven't actually seen the limits to like going into your soul. And I don't even know if you can actually see that. I feel like you've got to more experience that, and it it's like an area that we don't really actually know much about. Like you know it when you feel it, but apart from that, it's like, well, might as well be nihilistic because I can't, like, you don't understand it. Your knowledge ends there, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you've got to work out on the edge of your knowledge what's the next sort of thing that you need to kind of integrate. And like it's not a matter of like intellectual curiosity. It's more of like it's a lot more narrative based where you're in a life and the life kind of is a story. In the story, who you are and your preferences has been revealed, and hopefully you were paying attention to that. And then you've also got a sense of what you want, and you've got to try figure out how to go from here into what you want. And it's definitely not an intellectual endeavor solely. It's you got to combine many things, and you've also got to integrate the people around you in your crazy plans. And it's like it's a real thing. It's similar to doing like art or something like that. Like there's so many little things that you kind of some of it is technique that you can take from other people. Some of it is your own technique you're putting on it. Some of it you're making up in the moment, and you're just sort of seeing as you make something up in the moment, probability reveals itself to you, and it's a very complicated world. But we have an example of someone who does this really well in the next story. So I think the character in this story gets it right.
See, just to add to that before we move on, is like, I feel like it's a question of how to have a good life rather than trying to understand it. It's
And
probably not high, it's probably too low level, but it's like, it's the type of question that you ask rather than, it's like, what is life? And it's like, well, how do I have a good one?
yeah. Oh, you spend a whole lifetime answering that question. And if you're doing it right, hopefully it will be somewhat enjoyable.
Mm.
But with, especially within the context of like this sort of series, you're gonna need money because money is essentially its possibility that you get to. Money secures you so you can try something and see whether or not you like it. And it's a problem that we can solve. It's not easy, but we can solve that one. So
It's at least a level of complexity knocked down.
yeah, exactly. So I think if we can manage to shake a bit of nihilism and figure out how to get some money, we might be able to get things moving. So
Okay.
this is our next story. This is the movie Free Guy. It's the Ryan Reynolds movie where he's an NPC in a game. It's have you guys seen it? I don't think Will has.
No.
Andrew?
Yeah, I've
Yeah, you've
seen it.
seen it? Yeah, okay. Um, So a quick summary of what I think the important points for this particular conversation is. So Ryan Reynolds plays an NPC who becomes aware that his life takes place inside of a video game. The players who are participating in the game simultaneously participate in a higher reality, i.e. the real world. So because they're kind of these real world people who are coming down to the reality, they bring all these sorts of powers with them into the game, and they have freedom. Whereas Guy, he's an NPC in this false world. He he lacks these powers, but he begins to develop them. So all the people who are players in the game, they're distinguished because they wear sunglasses. So all the NPCs, they don't talk to the sunglasses people. So while walking to his job as a bank teller at a bank whose purpose is to be robbed by the players of the game on a mission. So it's like it's kind of a funny job.
Very nice.
Yeah. Like Satan in Mark Twain's book would probably point out the absurdity that his job is to work at a bank that gets robbed every day. Maybe he should know that this isn't the actual reality, or maybe there's more to this. So he's walking to his job and he spots a player character and falls in love. Later on, while working at the bank during a robbery, he sees her again. And as she's walking past the bank, he interrupts the players who are robbing the bank because he wants to sort of leave and go do this other thing. And there ends up being a bit of a scuffle, and he manages to get hold of a pair of the sunglasses. And now, while looking through the sunglasses, he can see the world as the players see it. So he becomes aware of this. He becomes aware of a higher reality, i.e. that there's things in his very world he cannot see. But he doesn't know that there's a higher reality beyond that this is a game that people are playing. But this is, this first step into a higher reality. That's enough for him at the moment. He meets up with the girl, and she reveals that he'll have to level up in the game to be able to be of any use to her. So the game is kind of like a Grand Theft Auto style game, and he doesn't want to harm the NPCs. So he begins to go around fighting the player characters, protecting the NPCs from them. So you see, he's becoming a bridge between the realities here. And this is a lot more like the kind of ways that in which somebody who's not nihilistic can view a higher reality. It's something beyond them, but it's something they can engage with, and they can use it to make their lower reality better. It's a very, very weird way to sort of think of it, because we don't really see this in the nihilistic driven stories. Meanwhile, in the real world, there are several storylines kind of playing out. I'll just summarize them. The game is being replaced by a sequel within a week, meaning that the servers will be shut off, and that will end Guy's world. So there's a suspicion that the code for the game was plagiarized, and when the servers are switched off, the evidence will be destroyed. And the people who suspect it was plagiarized, they're the ones who developed the code that the game's based on. So the person who is the player behind the girl character that Guy has fallen in love with, she's investigating the plagiarism from outside the company. And then there's a character who is the person who created the AI code that works for the company. And he begins to sort of look into Guy, and he discovers this NPC's kind of come to life. But when he developed this AI code, his goal was to create AI characters in games that would sort of gain this kind of sentience and be able to make their own decisions and update their own code through engaging with their world. And he's in love with the girl who recruited Guy in game. Getting a little confusing here, but it doesn't matter.
It's a bit of a love triangle going
between an NPC and two real people, which is it's very funny.
Yeah.
It's also funny because Guy is the NPC. is a lot more charming than the guy
Yeah.
who coded Free World. It's very good.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So from within the lesser reality of the game, Guy manages to resolve the conflicts in the higher reality, despite his limited understanding of it. It's revealed in multiple scenes. He has no idea what the real world is. He's just not sure of it. He assumes it's some kind of paradise of sorts. Like, it's very funny.
Heaven
And
representation.
yeah, and in doing so, in resolving problems in the higher reality, he also resolves problems in the lower reality by moving everyone who's an NPC in that game to another location, which is then released as a separate game. So he's basically taken everyone out of the game that's ending and put them into a new game of some sort. It's the game that's at the foundation of the world, and that's the intellectual property of the people who developed it. So they're able to preserve their NPC characters and launch a new game. It's it's a whole situation. But in doing so, being an AI who's become sentient, he kind of guides the others to sentience, and he teaches them basically how to live. Um, and see, the thing that is very good about the story is he's brought the higher reality down to him. Like in the real world, people have choices. In his world, they didn't until he figured out how to have choices. And in a sense, it was bestowed on him from above, but he also created it from below. Like he met the higher reality kind of in the middle in a certain sense, because any of the other NPCs could have done it, but it was him that figured it out first.
Mm.
And then, despite the fact that in doing so, he's become above the other NPCs, he still cares for them and he looks after them. And, God, it's.
He's done a bit
hard
of a
to
hero thing there, where he's found something from the unknown, brought it back, and made everyone benefit from it, which is like pretty much the
And
opposite of being the devil.
and the thing is, he didn't need to understand the higher reality in all its detail. Because you can't do that. You can't understand what's above you in entire detail because one, there's always an unknown, and two, it's just not it's not efficient. It's not a good way to live.
Yeah.
It's very, I don't know. You go in stages and you move beyond them, and it's very funny watching him unlock all these kind of like higher world abilities in the game and spread them throughout the game. That's a lot more akin to what I suppose somebody who's not operating as a nihilist can do.
Even with beliefs or quotes or sayings and stuff like that, things that influence people. It's not exactly
Yeah,
clear what realm of higher power in our actual reality. Well, this could be the higher reality as our reality, but you can reach out and you can grab some real gems and bring them forth and spread them through the world in the form of quotes, books, literature, art, games, other things like that. And like not make everyone feel like it's not worth saving money and doing good things.
yeah. Well, there's a funny thing because there's these little sayings that are like these one-liners of text, and sometimes they indicate something. And it's like it's so funny because they're these bridges to the higher reality. Like there's a quote from Nietzsche I think of often because I make weird choices and get criticized for them because people don't understand my choices. But I have confidence in my choices because I know why I'm making them. But the quote is something like does he not go backwards? And the response is he goes backwards as someone does before taking a big leap, like something like that. And I'm in the middle of going through that again, and it's a pattern that I've played out multiple times now, and I'm receiving the same old criticisms with a different flair on them. And like, after repeating this pattern for enough times and kind of somewhat not mastering, but being able to at least pull a little bit of this higher reality that I'm engaging with that's invisible to the people who are currently criticizing me, having an understanding of how to bridge to that reality and pull it into like my reality. It's very funny because their criticism is like when the bank's supposed to be getting robbed and all the NPCs are meant to lay down and Guy stands up and all the NPCs are telling him, stay down. What are you doing? Like you're breaking the rules. And really, there was no rules saying he had to do that. Like it's in the code, but he can change the code.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes these AIs special. Like they can change the code, and every single one of them is special. They just don't know it. Like, it's one of the funny things about the movie is that it's essentially like Guy's one of many who's no different than anyone else, except for the fact that he's entirely different.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
He's literally built different as a person.
It's.
Yeah, you go, Will. You go.
I was just gonna say, it's like you hear the story from Mark Twain, right? And you hear him talking like Satan talking. There's no reality. There's no like higher reality. You're all alone and stuff like that. You could easily dispense with the fact that that guy's a psycho, but on the same, not like and delirious, and it's not real, and like what he's saying is stupid and stuff like that. But you could also accept it. It's the same thing when you talk about like the opposite end of the spectrum. When you talk about like the life is worth living and there's a lot of beautiful art in the world and stuff like that. It's like you can be called crazy for that as well. But
Yeah.
it's like it sounds weird when you talk about the higher reality in the sense of integrating with it and bringing something forth from it. And it sounds like a madman's story, but so does the opposite end of the spectrum, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
I also like the term for a crazy person of lunatic. I like the word lunatic because kind of like if somebody is a lunatic, it's perhaps better than saying someone's mentally ill. Like I like the idea of lunatic because it's almost like somebody who, one, I know it's not lunar like the moon, but it makes me think of like someone who in the darkness, just guided by moonlight, is running forward and doing things. While other people are saying like, it's dark, don't do stuff. Like I don't think the root of the word is lunar, like the moon. It might be, I don't know. But there's a thing like that where there's kind of like these hints of light. Sometimes the pathway forward isn't shining like the sun, it's just a little glimmer. And then you can push forward into that, and other people will have no idea what you're even seeing, let alone why are you out there in darkness? And I don't know, man, something like that.
It's really crazy because this can apply to making financial decisions like massively. And I'm trying to pull it back to the essential point because it's like when you try to make a decision like buying an apartment or buying a house or something like that, all your friends and family around you might be against you for some godforsaken reason. And like it's like there's the risk factor, which we should probably talk about a little bit. But it's like having financial nihilism doesn't even let you engage with that at all, you know?
Yeah. Well, I got two things. So I'll update us here. One, lunatic is the Latin root for the word is moon. So,
I just looked that up as well. Yeah.
Fact
It
checking.
actually is from moon.
but then the other thing is, I got some news, Andrew. I got the farm.
You got a farm. Not a farm, the farm.
The farm. Now, we still got to hear back from the solicitor and the bank. The bank should be no worries because they've told me they'll lend me money, but that's different than actually lending me the money. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And then there's the solicitor. So the solicitor will do a bunch of searches and stuff. And let's say in, I don't know, 10 years they've got a highway planned and it's going to go through the property or something, or maybe it's going to become a sewer ground or a dump or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
You'll sell it for a few mil and fuck off back to where you are, hey? Is that the plan?
she'll tell me before I go forward with the purchase whether or not, there's something like
Hmm.
something that would be something that someone who was going to purchase it would really want to know. So, provided the bank and the solicitor come back and say we're good to go, we're good to go. I went out to this farm. I met this old guy. It was pretty awesome. He gave us a tour of the land. He was a real estate agent. He lived there. And yeah, we liked it so much we put an offer in, and he was kind enough to accept it, which someone else offered more money, but he took our offer. Because I'm lucky like that.
What an idiot!
It's because I'm exceptionally cute.
He's gonna be expecting favors on. He's still gonna live there. That's part of that deal.
No, the thing is you were like, I've read Mark Twain's book, and the world doesn't mean anything, and you should just accept the deal.
Yeah,
he's offered him like 30 grand or something.
It's like all your potential futures lead to death, apart from this one. You're like doing the Doctor Strange thing in Endgame. You're like,
that's your one outcome.
Yeah. No. See, the thing was, an investor offered him more money, but the investor wanted to do the purchase sight unseen, and apparently it's not uncommon in the area for an investor to see a block, say, oh, I like that one. If they live down in Sydney or something, the kind of money we're talking here is nothing to them. So they'll put an offer in, and then they'll come out, take a trip, and right before settlement go, nah, don't worry about it, I don't want it. And that's a real hassle for everyone involved. So we came out to the block, we met the old guy, we told him our plans, and it was quite a nice conversation, and he seems to think we're going to be an easier sale, and he'll forsake the extra money just to get it done.
You're easier, Aaron. How do you feel about
that? I feel good, man. That's what I want people to think when they look at me. Anyway,
you should have taken him a carton of home laid eggs, just as a nice welcoming gift, but also, or a departing gift, I assume, and then also just to prove you have chickens, because that'd be a bonus for a farmer to sell to someone who's kind of already in the business.
Well, I think there was a couple times when perhaps once upon a time I would have said a dumb response to some of the things he was saying, because I've been doing the reading for a little while now. At least I know the terminology well enough to be okay. Like, like the farm has pastures. You don't.
That's what cows eat.
Yeah, see, that's the word. I wasn't like, oh, I like the grass field. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's sort of.
Is there a difference? Is the difference that the cow is eating it? Is that what makes it a pasture?
I don't know what the technical difference is, but the pasture is kind of like the field in which, the grass is such that you can make hay, whereas maybe like a grass field could be something you play soccer on.
It's whether you've mowed it or not.
Yeah.
There's a context, and I was using the right words for the context. And I think just having every little thing like that line up for me, we've ended up in a situation where, being the lower bidder in the situation, we've come out victorious. That's a pretty good outcome.
Giving a carton of eggs to the guy on the farm is almost like saying, "Thank you for letting my chickens have a home. They're homeless."
You got this voice up there.
Yeah, you got the chickens in the car and they're laying eggs in the back.
Like, I've just come off a steamboat with all my possessions in a suitcase
and like some chickens.
Like you're in black and white or something. He's trying to catch one now. Oh, he is trying to catch one. I was making a joke that you were trying to catch the chicken, but then you pulled up a chicken.
What's the catch, man? She's been at my feet.
She's easy. Look at her.
But so now here's the funny thing. I announced 2 years ago I would buy a farm. And people thought that was maybe weird. I got a lot of like, what about this? What about that? And it's very funny because like I don't think anybody put forward any criticism of me buying a farm, which I read my first book on restoration agriculture. No, sorry, first book on permaculture. I think it was 2015, 2016. Like the ideas weren't new to me 2 years ago.
Mm.
But people would be like, what about the animals? And like I was gonna be like, nah, I won't get it then. Nah, I didn't think of that. Like
You're like, that's what it's for? That's what they do on farms?
a common one I get is, what about the drive? And I'm like, well, I'm aware of that.
Is it close enough that you'll keep your job?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. I'm about to become a app developer, restaurant manager, a farmer.
Ragtag team of skills. Sounds like a weird guy from a zombie movie or something.
You should
Yeah.
start planting potatoes and then supply the chips and everything like that. You should
I've
be the
actually
potato guy.
I don't know if you've had battered zucchini scallops, but dude,
Oh.
so nice. No, it's nice. It's nice.
Ooh.
The squash is really nice as well.
Yeah,
Wait, did you get them in or did you like do that yourself?
I did it myself. Yeah.
He put the seeds
I
in
grew
the
up like
ground, grew them up, brought them to work, cut them up, battered them, and then consumed them. Full life cycle. Done.
Would a zucchini not like melt to a degree and just be like an empty batter filled case of water and seeds?
If you cut it really thin, probably, but I cut it a little bit thick, so it's almost like
It's like warm watermelon.
it retains its
Yeah.
integrity a little bit. See, here we go. Criticisms. Do you have a farm? Are you a farmer?
In saying that,
I can't imagine any way it wouldn't just be hot water.
it tastes good. Like it tastes it's worth the money if you
Yeah,
were
we
to
can
sell
do
it.
People will like them.
It's worth the money. Zucchinis aren't expensive.
Exactly. So the food's not expensive to buy.
Why are you saying the positives as if they're ridiculous?
I'll tell you what, next time I come in, I'm gonna bring a zucchini into the shop. I'm gonna bring one and it's gonna be deep fried. And I'm gonna hate it.
And
but
then
I'll try it.
And then you're gonna realize that you're an NPC in a reality and you've just figured out how to break out of it. And then you'll wear the zucchini on your head.
Yeah, it's very funny because now I've changed my reality a little bit where me purchasing a bow and arrow is no longer it's like it's a necessity as opposed to like a ridiculous purchase now.
For when the chickens get out.
Dude, I saw a fox.
Oh really?
Yeah, broad daylight too.
On a farm. Yeah. If he's that bold, imagine what he's doing at night.
Was it like
Yeah.
Was it like doing the stand on sideways thing that cats do? I don't know what foxes do, but was it like
No, you know what? It walked across the road in front of my car. So the field, so the old guy, the farmer, he's getting old. He hasn't been like maintaining the place like I suppose he once would have. He hasn't done anything to the fields in 12 months, so the grass is about 8 foot high. And then the neighbors have some sort of crop. I can't remember what it was. But this fox just come out of one field, walked across the road in front of my car, into the other field, and like I was like, whoa. I'm like, there are proper animals in this grass. Like,
Mm. You
Because
see like a giraffe walking through and stuff.
it's just like the little bits of like the head coming through, like that's on the top of the grass.
there's a shack on the property. It's over 100 years old. That's one thing. It was built a long time ago, and currently the farmer lives in it, but it's pretty run down. It doesn't have electricity, has tank water, which is pretty good. I was actually very happy because it has plumbing, which electricity is a pretty easy problem to solve these days, thanks to the advances in the camping technology for solar. Um, so shack has plumbing, it has water. I don't know about the state of the water. It's all going to be a thing to look into, but it's got like this little house on it, this shack house, which is going to be, it's just so cool. Like, I can't wait to show you guys. Like,
So, and you can't achieve any of this with financial nihilism.
oh yeah, no, you wouldn't. I should run through the story a little bit maybe. So there's the first thing we did was while I was in uni and my girlfriend's in uni, we bought an apartment. I had a $20,000 deposit for that, and I was able to purchase a 1-bedroom apartment in Stafford. I probably shouldn't say the suburbs and shit. It's like,
I'll bleep it out.
Don't say.
but I purchased this 1-bedroom apartment, and then I've heard that if you've got a deposit as low as 5,000, you can still buy apartments these days. So getting the first property relatively easy. It's a bit of a jump because you've got to take on a debt, and there's all these different people you've got to talk to, like real estate agents, solicitor. You got to talk to the bank, and then everyone around you will be like, "Oh, it's all so expensive at the moment. Oh, you take on this debt. Oh, blah blah blah." But you overcome that, and then you get the apartment. Doesn't have to be an apartment; could be a house, and you can do it as low as $5,000 deposit now. So property number 1, you can do. Property number 2, I used the growth in the price of the apartment. So we brought it for 200,000, and then it went up a little bit. I used the growth in that price, and I said to the bank, I've got this apartment here, I've got some equity, I'd like to buy a house, and I had very little cash. And at this time I was working out of uni, my girlfriend's still in uni, and we didn't have a lot of income because of that. But because we were going to rent out the apartment when we bought a house, the bank took that as income, even though we didn't actually have it, and they approved us to buy this house that we're in now. And then after owning this house for a little bit, in a time when the property market's done exceptionally well, the same thing's happened again. We've got some equity. We could just sit on this and be happy, but I really want to get a farm. So now that we got the equity to get the farm, we started looking, and I think I've spent the last 6 weekends driving out to the middle of nowhere in my Corolla, taking it on all sorts of dirt roads and meeting all these strange people out in the middle of nowhere. And we were able to finally find a farm that we liked after liking a few, but then finding out there was reasons why we shouldn't purchase them. Now we're moving forward with this one. But all in all, it's just a matter of just like getting that first property was everything, and just staying positive, like paying down the debt. Instead of feeling like we were trapped in one place forever, taking advantage of the possibilities that were presented to us, stepping up, but not taking on excessive amounts of risk. And now we're at a position when the next step up, rather than being kind of like apartments and houses are kind of boring, this one's going to be fun. I'm very excited for this one. And it's almost like after a time, the world's been like, oh, wise guy, eh? Deal with this. Like,
That you chose.
yeah. I mean, I chose it, but like if I was loving the house situation, I wouldn't have chosen it. You know what I mean? Like there's kind of something in here a little bit beyond me that's kind of guiding me this way, just in the sense of like I don't get to pick what I feel. And based on what I feel and what I've researched, I've kind of put together this plan.
Do you feel cooped up in that house? Do you feel like a chicken in a coop?
I don't know. I really like if it was, let's say that they said lockdown forever now and they put the walls up or whatever around the house and I was trapped in here, I could be okay. I wouldn't be like, oh, this is awful. But I feel more cooped up in like my life, like between the house and like my job and all of that sort of stuff. It's like I want some excitement beyond that. And I've got to meet these responsibilities of, I don't know, I can't just go do something, let's say, like, yeah, I could just travel and I'd go see the world and that would be exciting. But that would also bleed me dry after a year and then I'd be back at
Go to
square one.
India again. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be so good.
See,
Oh shit! I need a charger. Sorry, give me 1 sec.
Yeah.
I feel like the take-home message here is not it's not just life is what you make of it, right? It's also the fact that you have to buffer against the ever coming negativity of every single person in your life all the time.
Yeah. There's the thing too. Like sometimes people will say like encourage you can do it, but they don't know how to do it themselves, so their words are so hollow.
Yeah.
And it's just like if you don't know how to do it and you don't know anyone who's done it maybe and you encourage someone to do that thing, you might just be nudging them towards like a cliff. So
Yeah.
you've got to be very careful
In what you're encouraging.
So then, because people are careful encouraging, you end up in a situation where it's pretty much all the possible encouragement gets filtered and all the negativity is just what shines through because people are like, hey, you're probably making a mistake because this reason.
Well, I think we should probably close on that one for part 2. Did you want to summarize?
How about Andrew summarizes?
Summarize. So there's an above layer of the proper reality, and then there's our layer below, and nothing matters as it turns out. There's a hell, and there's a Satan. The Satan will misguide you. He'll tell you wrong things. There's a God. He didn't really come into it much. I'll be honest. I expected God to, say a little left and rights, give you a little nudge, but he didn't really show up at all. But you can't be financially successful if you're a nihilist.
On the replay, when you said God didn't show up at all, a sparkle appeared behind you and flew past the window.
That's a car. That's actually a road.
Reality is what we make it.
It might have been God in a car. I don't know.
Dude, I got Bender right here with me.
I don't really know what kind of car God drives, so I couldn't really say whether it was or not.
What's the bet? It's a Tesla.
I like that it was a sparkle and it was God.
I'd like to see it on the replay. I can't wait.
All right. Out.